And I would like, please, if you could all join me in welcoming my very, very dear friend, Emma Watson. Hello. Do you want to hear?
Yeah.
There? All right. Fantastic.
Oh,
Here you go.
you kill me.
That's it. Best kiss. Fantastic. Fantastic.
Best kiss. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Oh,
It's so
this is
strange.
amazing. It's so strange because, as Steve says, we've been going for dinner together now for 10 years.
Yes.
And Steve, he's too humble to say this, but he's not just my friend. He's really my mentor. And yeah, he's family really. So anyway, it's lovely to do this with an audience for once. He has such great things to say, and everyone should hear them. So
Well, thank you. No pressure.
The best advice. I'm obviously biased because I like you, as we know, but I was honestly obsessed with your book. I think I told you this when I first called you after I read it, but I read it in 2 sittings, which, considering if you've seen how thick the book is, this is a really big deal. It means I didn't move for a very long time and just read his book. It has all this wisdom in it, but it's entertaining. It's, as I said, it's the bran and the donut.
Yes.
It's spiritual enlightenment and horror, which are 2 concepts I never expected to be so successfully melded together. I know you often think filmically, having worked with you on Perks of Being a Wallflower, which was an amazing film and a book. Can you give us the trailer of your book? What would the trailer look like for Imaginary Child? You're going to act, just to really put you on the spot.
I think
you're going to act it out right now.
Yes. Well, it depends, because not the sequel, because I've told you about the sequel.
You have told me.
That's the child one. For this one, Imaginary Friend, I would say this. It would be that moment when Christopher is outside of his school and he's all alone, and there is the cloud face up in the heavens. And it's like when the last of the school buses go away, it's just him alone talking to that cloud. I think that, like a nice little 20-second scary little trailer, like what does that mean? What's behind that cloud? Because that cloud represented everything to me.
Right.
And following the cloud was the kind of the metaphor for the last 10 years of writing this book. So I would pick that moment.
So that was really going to be my next question was, so you had this vision came to you of the boy speaking to the cloud. Mm-hmm. And then I'm curious, did you kind of have the whole story panned out and then you just kind of had to write it? Or were different big pieces of the story revealed to you as you
I think big pieces of the story were revealed to me as I went. I knew some basic things. And I know that you know that I know some basic things because this is a kind of a fun moment where you and I are on the set of The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and we were at lunch when we were shooting the Secret Santa thing, and it was just me and you, and I was just like, and I told you the story, and the boy in the cloud, and then the woods, and then he goes missing, and all these things, and you were on the edge of your seat. It was a fantastic moment, and then at the end I go, and then this happened. You were like, huh? You know what I mean? It was.
People think that being an actress is about being a good liar. It's actually the opposite. What it means is that all of your emotions play across the whole of your face and body.
This is true.
And you can hide nothing about the way that you feel.
Yes, that is absolutely true.
It's true.
You're a very bad liar.
I was a terrible liar. You told me the ending and I couldn't conceal my...
You couldn't.
I was like, it was so good, and then it was bad.
Yeah.
It was so good.
There you go. Thank you very much. There you go. So, welcome to dinner.
Not bad.
So yes, that was, but that was a really important moment because obviously I trust your taste, and you're brilliant, and so you knew. So going back to your question is, you knew a lot of it already, but a lot of it was real surprise. I didn't think it would be as long as it was.
Right.
But it kept demanding to be this length. It kept demanding to be an epic and multi-point, multi-perspectives. And so, I knew a lot of it. I knew a couple of the twists along the way, but a lot of it was real surprise. Yeah. You would set up a thing where in the beginning, for example, the prologue, David Olson is this character and he goes missing in the woods. I only wrote that part. This will kind of be shocking to you. I only wrote that part because I just wanted to establish the kind of scary tone, because nothing scary happens for a long time. It's really about the heart. So I just added that, and then he became such a huge presence throughout the whole book. Wow. So sometimes you just follow, sometimes you just follow the clues.
Device that then became this
really
thing,
integral. and so many thematic layers about loss, about you know, I had the idea for this one character, Mary Catherine, and she started off as one way and then evolved into something else. So yeah, a lot of it was surprising to me.
Amazing. Because I know you so well, I know that being a great husband is really important to you. Being a good father is really important to you. You have 2 children. You've directed a film in the meantime. I'm just curious what the daily rigor of actually getting a project of this magnitude done and complete. What does the discipline look like to actually to do that?
Well, yeah. Well, no, that's a great question. You know, it's funny, when I was younger, when I was in my 20s, I used to wait for inspiration, right? and now it's kind of like flipped, like inspiration waits for me. You know what I'm saying? Because what I've learned is, when you're a young artist, you're like waiting for that like lightning bolt. And now that I'm older, and like, you know, Liz and I, like, we have, you know, with our kids, it's like, you know, you got to take Theo to school. You got to take Theo to school. If you only have 3 hours that day, well, guess what? That's what you have. What I found, though, is by just simply committing to the time. When I have time, I give it as much as I can. That and a lot of coffee, you know, and you know, that and a lot of coffee in 10 years can equal, you know, a book.
Okay, so amazing.
You know, let's not leave out the 10 years part.
This is incredible. So you're not one of these writers that's like, I have to write between 4 in the morning and 8, and then I have to have this very specific type of croissant, and then, do you know what I mean? It's not that.
Yeah,
it's like...
absolutely. First of all, I haven't had a croissant in a long time. Secondly, it's like, listen, you know, it's funny. I was thinking about when we were right down the road here on Sunset Boulevard for the Perks premiere at the Cinerama Dome, right? So we're right down the road. And like, you were off, and then I went home that night and I changed diapers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the glamour of it. Yes, it used to be like there was a ritual, and this had to happen, and this had to happen. And now it's like, nah, you know what I mean? You just do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's not. But like, tomorrow will tell you how good today is.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you.
This is what I mean. He just drops things, and you're like, that's so great. Okay, amazing. All right, so you had this, I was going to say, of all the things you could have written, why did you write this? But it sounds as though the inspiration guided you, in the sense that you weren't like, I want to write a book about this kind of message. It was like, this idea just captured your
It was the idea.
imagination.
It's like, the idea of the boy looking at that cloud. And I was like, something's behind that cloud. It's evocative of something he's been through. I started thinking about the boy and his friends. I started thinking about my childhood in Pittsburgh. And little by little, bit by bit, these moments happened that were just, they were really, they just inspired me. And you kind of go down a rabbit hole. But my deal with myself and with the reader was this, is, you know, I hadn't written a book, I hadn't published a book in 20 years. So for me, I was like, I was going to give it the best I had.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't going to stop until I thought I was really, really up to par with The Perks of Being a Wallflower, because I couldn't let down those fans. I mean, over the years, it's kind of remarkable, all the love that, I mean, the letters and the just meeting people. So it was like, you know, that was my thing.
Well, you did it. Your book is a New York Times bestseller right now, and it's...
Thank you.
So clearly you achieved that goal. Small spoiler, Christopher recounts in the book the time that he saw The Shining, and and you cite Stephen King as an inspiration.
I did.
So I had to ask you, do you think there's lots of similarities between Danny Torrance and Christopher?
I never thought Danny Torrance and Christopher, because Danny was born with The Shining, and what happens to Christopher in the woods, like when he comes out a little bit different, he was changed in those woods.
Okay.
So it's slightly different. But I will say that in terms of Stephen King, which is very exciting, and I was really moved that his son, the brilliant Joe Hill, I love The Fireman. A little plug there for you, Joe. That when he gave me a nice blurb for the book, it really meant a lot to me. It's just, Stephen King is such an inspiration. You know, when I was a kid, I don't know if I've ever even told you the story. When I was 12, I've only wanted to be 2 things in my life. I want to be a baseball player. I want to be a writer. So I said to my dad, you know, when I gave up baseball at 11, I was like, hey, that's not going to happen. I said, you know, Dad, I want to be a writer. What I meant to say was novelist, but I said writer. And he gave me this advice. He said, well, great writers are great readers. And then he kind of like left the room to like smoke a cigarette and watch the hockey game, because that's what he did. And I was like, huh. And it was good advice. He was trying to encourage me to read more, but I didn't take it that way. I took it as a rule. I said, I guess I can't be a novelist because I wasn't a great reader. I watched a lot of movies. So I said, well, I read movies. All right, I guess I'll write movies. Because I just applied the logic of the rules to like this.
This is why what you tell children is such a huge deal, because you'll take it literal.
Yes. Well, don't be too sad, because I ended up being pretty good at it.
Yeah, no, it turned out pretty well. It turned out good.
You were good in the movie, and life is great. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's all fine.
Okay.
But no, the point being though is that when he gave me that advice, the only person I really read at that age, because I don't think I was ever diagnosed. I was never diagnosed as dyslexic or whatever, but I'm a really slow reader, painfully slow, and at that age, the only person that really kind of got me, or that I got, was Stephen King. He's what I read.
Right.
So it was like, it went from like Dr. Seuss, and then I skipped a lot to Stephen King. And so this book, Imaginary Friend, was very much a tribute to him and his influence. I love his stuff. And also, it's ironic, I was just in London, as you know, because I saw you there. We saw the Tina Turner musical, which was
great, by the way.
It was quite good.
It was really
quite great. But I went to the Stanley Kubrick the next day. I went to the Stanley Kubrick archives, and I held the Shining screenplay in my hand, which was pretty remarkable.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was neat.
Just to move in a completely different direction now, the book deals with these kind of existential questions, life after death, and it deals with the religion a lot. And I know a little bit about your growing up, but do you come from a religious background? How did this form so much of the backbone?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, my thing is basically I was raised in Western Pennsylvania, a southern suburb of Pittsburgh called Upper St. Clair. And my thing about growing up in Pittsburgh is I was basically surrounded by three things, all of which are in the book: woods, deer, and Catholics. You know what I mean, like those are the. That's
These
it.
That's the foundations of your
basically the working
up.
Title of Imaginary Friend was wood, deer, and Catholics.
Yeah.
And I am the latter. I was raised Catholic. And, it really, when you give a kid like me that's pretty literal, with a lot of imagination, and you tell that 7-year-old, okay, so by the way, and then God's going to flood the world, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It scared me to death. Because I took it quite literally, and it really scared me. And so a lot of those questions, a lot of that imagery is in the book. It's kind of a mixture of everything that scared me as a kid in a lot of ways, whether it was, Hansel and Gretel, who, the witch becomes the hissing lady. Or, when Christopher goes into the woods, he's wearing the little red hoodie. He's Little Red Riding Hood. I'm mixing Grimm and the Bible in this and my own kind of memories, because all of those things together with my own imagination is what led to the kid fears.
Wow.
And what is most remarkable about art, and I love this about art, I'll always love about it, is that doing, writing about fear, at the end of the book, I don't fear it anymore.
Right. Speaking of fear, blasphemy and also superstition clearly weren't, you were just like able to put those to one side and write the book. I would have been like, am I going to get cursed for doing any of this?
No, that's, but you know what? Yes. Okay. And some people feel that way, like, I've gotten some anger. I have, and I'm not going to pretend that I didn't. But as you know, because you've read the book, is that especially with the character, let's say like Mary Catherine McNeil, who is, and I wrote her, she's like the most Catholic girl ever, and I take it very seriously. I say, what happens to a young woman, in this case she's 17, who is raised Catholic, believes everything, she's a true believer, true person of faith, and her brain goes, okay, what happens if I sin, and before I can go to confession, I die? Does that mean I'm damned? And I take it very seriously and very literally. Mm-hmm. And so my thing was watching her go through her, watching her go through her journey through the entire thing to letting go of fear and only embracing the love, I think is very empowering. It's actually a very pro-faith. The whole thing is steeped in.
It felt very spiritual. It definitely felt that it was honoring all of that.
Thank you.
Which brings me also to forgiveness. Forgiveness seems like an incredibly important theme in the book, and I love how we come to understand the stories of the two children in the story who are bullies or who are bullying.
Yes.
And was just interested if you could say more about the importance of that as a...
In terms of bullying as themes, yes. In terms of understanding, see, here's the thing. One thing I've loved, I've done this in all of my work, and I'm really grateful to have a platform to even say this, is I feel like, you know, most people, as you know, we all have prejudice against each other. And I'm not talking racial or religious. I'm talking like, you see a person on the street, you make an instant snap judgment about them. We all do it. You know, it's part of our survival. I look at something a little bit deeper and I say, I love taking a character and you think, oh, this is the bully, and you dismiss them. Oh, this is the this. And by the end of this story, everybody is redeemed. By the end of the story, you understand, you may not agree with how they've coped with whatever their trauma is, or whatever it is they're going through, but at least you understand it. And what I'm trying to use this story for, it's why I was very honored to direct the movie of Wonder, or even with Perks Being a Wallflower going back, is you take these things that most people don't talk about, that most things get swept under the rug, and you really look them in the eye so that people can use them. Whether it's like a young woman who's like struggling with something in her own life, or it's a kid, or even if it's a parent that's trying to understand, oh, my kid's struggling, maybe something's going on there.
Yeah, 100%. And the compassion of that is amazing. And yeah, and your willingness to confront issues that, as you say, are uncomfortable, and people kind of prefer to kind of just sweep that one over this way, and it's easier just not to talk about any of this, which is incredible. I think when I wrote the review for your book, that was actually the thing that struck me the most, or that I wanted to say the most